Oh, just gotta eat it. Hi everyone, we'll be making spring onion pancakes today. So we'll start off by making the dough. So to make the dough, we'll need 500 grams of flour, 300 ml of hot or lukewarm water, or you can see it as a 0.6 ratio of water to flour, and a teaspoon of salt. So this will make you 8 spring onion pancakes. So I normally add my water in bit by bit, but you can really just add it all in at once. It's really up to you. I don't think it really makes much of a difference. If you do find that the dough is a bit too wet, we can always add a bit more flour as we need it. So there's really no stress with that. So with the kneading, you can knead it however you want. The main objective is getting it to have a nice smooth texture at the end and for it to hold its shape. So I like stretching the dough like this. Kneading, kneading, kneading. And I test the dough to see whether it can hold its shape by just pulling it apart. If it doesn't, I just keep kneading. And once you get to the point you want to have a look whether it's smooth, here I'm not too satisfied, so I gave it a bit more, a minute or two more of kneading, and as you can see here, it's gotten smoother. You can also see that as I pull it apart, it can hold its shape. Okay, the next part we'll be needing to make the spring onion paste or the sauce that you place on top of the dough. So to make the spring onion paste, I normally use around 8 to 10 stalks depending on how big the spring onions are. I use 4 teaspoons of salt, but that is really towards your taste, and I use a cup of flour, but as long as it's coated well around the spring onions, that should be fine. And the flour is to allow the salt to stick on and to thicken up the oil that we will pour onto it later on. So just for comparison, I added the tablespoon, but just make sure you have a decent sized bowl. You put all the spring onions in there, the salt as well, and I put a cup of flour, and you want to mix it around briefly just so that the flour is spread out nice and equally when we do add the oil into it. So now it's time to heat up a tasteless oil. You do need a generous amount. If you have too much, then we can always add flour to thicken up the paste. So heating up, you want to test whether it's hot enough by sprinkling a bit of flour. If it fizzes, then it should be ready. So we'll be pouring it over into the bowl, so make sure the bowl can sustain the heat, and for your safety, do it safely. But nice busy, it's quite a spectacular sight. So you want to give it a mix, careful because the bowl will be hot, give it a taste, and adjust salt as needed. Enough flavour. So the dough has set for 2 hours at room temperature. It should be nice and smooth, very fluffy, very soft, and have a bit of bounciness to it as well. So it's time to roll out the dough and divide it into 8 pieces. After dividing the dough, you want to make the pieces into balls. I normally push them towards the center and seal the bottom. Note, I didn't say equal sized balls for a reason. So now it's time to roll the dough as flat as possible so that we can apply the spring onion paste onto it later. You will need to put some body into it and add some flour so that it doesn't stick. So now it's time to add the spring onion paste. You'll find that one spatula full goes a long way. You might also want to cut the spring onions a bit thinner than I did. So I'm all about teaching people through mistakes. My own mistakes. Finally, you want to roll the dough up so it creates those many flaky layers at the end. You want to stretch it out and roll it up into a scroll or snail like. Tuck the bottom under and let it sit for a minute or two as you make the other one. After you let it sit, the oil would have absorbed through the dough, so the dough will be a bit more moist. Now the home straight, you want to roll out the dough so that it becomes the shape that you want your pancakes to be like, sometimes circular, and as you can see, if you have too big of a spring onion piece, it will create a hole. So you want to prepare a pan on medium-high heat with a tablespoon of oil and just watch it cook. You'll notice that as the bubbles start forming, that means the other side is starting to get warm and cooked, and you want to just move the pan around to see if you can hear that scrapey sound. That's good. And give it a flip.
Wow, beautiful.
Now you want to prepare something to allow the pancake to air out as it cools. I use a bowl, and that way the pancake won't have to reabsorb the steam that comes out, just keeping it nice and crispy. But if you do like it a bit soggier, just go for it, just stack it on top of each other.
Flaky bits of roti-like chips. Alright, all that hard work is done. Got 8 pieces of beautiful spring onion pancakes. Last one here, many layers. Oh, just gotta eat it. And crunchy.